Along with Michelle Smallman, Courtney Cronin in for Chris Canty today. Evan Cohen with you. If you're just tuning in, you missed our conversation about Hubert Davis out at UNC, as well as the beginning of the baseball season tonight between the Yankees and the Giants. And we are less than a month away from the NFL Draft, and the conversation around one Ty Simpson continues. He is the Alabama quarterback. He is listed as QB2, in essence, in the NFL Draft behind Fernando Mendoza of Indiana, who most believe will go number 1 overall to the Raiders. But the conversation really has started around Dan Orlovsky, who is great at what he does in analyzing tape and analyzing football, really supporting Ty Simpson. Here's what Orlovsky had to say yesterday to the Pat McAfee Show, noon until 3 Eastern on ESPN, about Ty Simpson and the decision makers agreeing with Dan.
I would tell you this. Every year I just watch games like I have. I did this year. I finally got done with Ty just about a week ago. I felt strongly about feeling that he was the number 1 quarterback in the class. I can tell you, and I'm not going to tell you who, but I probably texted 12 to 15 general manager decision-making coaches in the NFL the very simple text of Ty Simpson is QB1 in this class, or the best quarterback in this class, and 2 people got back to me with a disagreement.
Interesting. 2 people, which means Ty Simpson has the chance to make an instant impact. Brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. All cake, no sugar. Confetti Craze 5 Hour Energy is back. Grab yours now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Courtney, you covered the NFL on a day-to-day basis. Ty Simpson is what? QB1, QB2? What is your take on what Orlovsky has had to say and where Ty Simpson should go in the upcoming draft?
I think it's pretty evident that Fernando Mendoza is QB1 and is going to the Las Vegas Raiders next month. I don't think we have any sort of trepidation that he might fall in the draft. It's been pretty clear since he won the Heisman Trophy, led Indiana to an undefeated season, won a national championship, that he's proven he can not only play in big games and win big games, but he's got a skill set that NFL GMs, coaches covet. That's not to say that Ty Simpson doesn't have that. And like going back a week now, when I was hosting First Take and Dan was on with us, he mentioned, like, the conversation started with how big is the gap between Ty Simpson as QB2 and Fernando Mendoza, who we believe is a shoo-in to be taken at number 1. And his argument became the gap is not that big. Or his argument was the gap is not that big, but yet the conversation then became, well, could he actually be closer to Fernando Mendoza and being taken number 1 overall than where he's at, both projected in Mel Kiper's mock draft at 16 to the Jets, and then a proposed trade in Field Yates' mock draft at number 26, where the Arizona Cardinals would swap spots with the Buffalo Bills and draft a quarterback of the future. That's still a pretty sizable gap going from 16 to 26. So I think the question becomes, what is Ty Simpson in the NFL? If you're drafting him in the first round, do you expect him to play right away? Is he even ready to do that? Whereas someone like Fernando Mendoza, and what we know about him and what we know about the team that he's headed to, he's playing right away. He is QB1 from day 1. Now, obviously, everybody needs seasoning in the NFL, no matter whether you're the first pick in the draft or the last, especially at the quarterback spot. But I think it's pretty clear right now that Ty Simpson is not going to be the first quarterback taken number 1 overall, or the first quarterback taken, period. That is an honor right now that belongs to Fernando Mendoza.
But is Fernando Mendoza the right pick? How many times have we seen the number 1 overall pick not be the right quarterback in that draft class? And I guess that's the way I'm trying to discern what Dan is saying. Is I agree with you, Courtney, 100%. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Mendoza is going to the Raiders. I have it in Sharpie. I would be floored at this point if they went any other route. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be the best quarterback to come out of this draft class. And I think what Dan is saying is, as he's watching the tape, some of the concerns we have around Ty Simpson may have been eased as he's watching him more and more. We're worried about the fact that he only started 15 games. There's a lot of concern about the body of work, about his size. A lot of people think he's a really great processor, he's accurate, things like that. But if you have a lot of questions surrounding a quarterback and their experience at the collegiate level, that might not be the route you want to go. But I am intrigued by the fact that Dan said he texted 15 decision makers and only 2 disagreed with him, because I think based on what we had been hearing up until this point, up until Dan's assessment of what he has seen on the tape, there was a pretty big gap from what we were hearing from NFL talent evaluators between these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think I can be real clear in this. Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza are interviewing for different jobs. They're not interviewing for the same job. Fernando Mendoza is interviewing for jobs that require him to perform upon arrival.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson is interviewing for jobs that require him to perform starting in 2027. Totally different jobs. And I think that when you're evaluating them the same, I just don't know that they should be. Courtney just mentioned First Take, and Dan was on with her on First Take. No big deal. They're on the same show, totally different jobs. Totally different jobs on that show, right? Courtney's job is to host the show. Dan's job is to be an analyst and give opinions on the show. Those are different jobs. Same show, different jobs. Ty Simpson is not interviewing for any jobs that require him to perform upon arrival. Fernando Mendoza is only interviewing for jobs that require him to perform upon arrival. And the Raiders, interestingly enough, seem to be the only team that is interviewing Fernando Mendoza for that job. We have not really heard about any other team saying, we like this guy because we have that job opening on ZipRecruiter right now for an available starting quarterback to play upon arrival. One team has a job opening for that. One. Whether we think other teams should or not. CC has brought up the point, and I agree with him, that there should be other teams trying to pry that pick away from the Raiders, and the Raiders should consider that, right? No one seems to be doing that. But anyone that's considering Ty Simpson is not considering the idea of drafting him to play right away.
Correct. And I think one thing that Dan talked about yesterday, which, like, when we hear about, like, and obviously he's plugged in. Like, there's no denying that. But when you hear about what he's having conversations with GMs about this close to the draft, it creates narratives that oftentimes end up dominating the conversation, whether true or not, that when it comes this close to the draft, and we've been taught with our eyes and with what we've heard to believe one thing to be one way, then all of a sudden there's a change in opinion. That's what creates the stir here. And like what I would push back on Dan with this on, because when he's on McAfee yesterday, and he talks about, I start with, what do you do in moments of panic with the football? Because that's really what separates good to great. He's right about that. I would tell you that Ty Simpson is more consistent in that regard. Moments of panic. I think about Fernando Mendoza needing to go 80 yards down the field with no timeouts on the road at Penn State, and then the big-time throw to Omar Cooper Jr., which ends up winning him the Heisman Trophy moment. That's a moment of panic. What about at the national championship game when he's down near the red zone, no one's open, he ends up taking off and lunging his way into the end zone for a touchdown? That's a moment of panic. I think that Fernando Mendoza has proven that it may not be, and I understand a lot of people are going to look at this and say, oh, it's not SEC caliber opponents in the Big Ten. This team went undefeated. He won the Heisman Trophy. Every panic moment that arose during the season, he mastered. So I don't think that we can look at this and say Ty Simpson has aced more panic moments than the guy who did it consistently throughout his one season at Indiana. I think that's the part where you can pick apart his argument here. And then, of course, the conversation became, what big games does he play in? And that's where I think this thing took a complete hard left and really got away from the crux of the conversation, which is the gap really that big between the guy we expect to go number one overall and the next quarterback taken in the draft?
Coming up, why a rule instituted to stop one thing has not done that, and people now want it eliminated. We will explain what that is next. We're on Sportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance.
The 2026 NFL Draft.
With the first pick.
Live from the North Shore of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I've been preparing for this moment since I was 6.
It all begins with round 1.
I would ask for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
Thursday, April 23rd on ESPN Radio.